So this is a straw bale wall, which is not yet plastered. You can see it from the outside how it looks when it has the first coat of plaster on. And straw bale has a couple of great advantages. One is that the walls go up really quickly because you're working with these very large building blocks that you can just stack up on top of each other. You can see the system that we've used here for pinning and attaching the bales together. We've got wooden 1x2s on both sides of the bale wall, and they're tied through in between the bales with baling twine. And those pins are attached at the top and at the bottom to other parts of the structure. So they're attached to the foundation and they're attached to a beam up at the top. All of that becomes encased in the first coat of the earthen plaster, which goes on about 1.5 inches thick. Bales are really, really excellent insulation. You get about R2 per inch of thickness of the wall. So these bales, they're 22 inches wide by 16 inches high and somewhat variable in length. So you can either use them with that 22-inch dimension running through the wall or with the 16-inch dimension running through the wall, which is what we do. We stack them on edge. So the bale wall is 16 inches thick, and then once you get a couple inches of plaster on both sides of that, you might end up with something like a 20-inch thick wall. If you use the bales the other direction, starting with 22, you end up with something like a 26-inch thick wall, which is a really thick wall. And we just don't need that much insulation in our climate here. The way we are doing it, we're probably getting something like R40, which is much better than a conventional construction with a 2x6 wall and fiberglass insulation. And the bales are most easy to use in a situation where you don't have a lot of openings. You've got a fairly simple wall. Once you get to where you're framing in lots of windows and doors and stuff like that, the bales can become a little bit more cumbersome to work with. So we switch over to this system, which is called light straw clay or slip straw. And you can see, for example, there's this fairly narrow area between this door frame and the wall here. And it would have been very awkward to do that with straw bale. So for this system, we open up a straw bale, take the loose straw, coat it with a little bit of clay slip, which is just clay soil dissolved in water. And then we have temporary forms attached to both sides of the frame, and we pack that clay and straw mixture into the forms and then remove the forms so it can dry. And you can see it's mainly straw. It has only a very, very small amount of clay soil, probably less than 5% by volume. And it's just enough to get it to stick together. And that gives you a similar R value per inch of thickness as you get with straw bale. But because it's just packed into a frame, you can make the wall whatever thickness you want, and you can frame any size and shape of openings. It's also something that's very easy for conventional builders to do, because this is basically just a stud wall. So this is the outside of the straw bale wall. For this wall, we've used metal strapping applied over the surface of the bales for our shear system. And that's a fairly typical way of dealing with shear in straw bale. And you can see that over that metal strapping, we've put burlap, which is soaked in a mixture of clay slip and flour paste. And that creates a lath that the earthen plaster will stick to. The earth plaster doesn't want to stick to metal, and it doesn't stick that well to wood. So whenever we're putting the earthen plaster over either metal or wood, we'll first coat those surfaces with the burlap to get substrate that the plaster is going to stick to easily. Over here on the left, you can see the plaster still drying. That just went up a couple days ago. And you can see the pins underneath the plaster because the plaster is thinner in those places where the pins and the strapping is. So those parts are drying faster. There will be another coat of plaster that goes on top of it. We don't like this kind of thing. Like, that's a bit bigger of a crack than we would like to see. But the second coat of plaster will fill that in and cover it.